Let's pause. Have you ever noticed how time seems to slip through your hands like a handful of soft sand? One moment, you're standing in the doorway of youth, your heart bright and expectant. The next, you find yourself in a quieter season, watching the light fade across familiar walls, feeling the weight of all you've gained and all you've had to let go. Perhaps you've felt it too, that tender ache beneath ordinary days. The sense that something precious is always just out of reach. Some call it longing. Others, simply life. In the hush between one heartbeat and the next, there is a wisdom older than any sorrow, a way of seeing that can transform even the simplest moment into something sacred. Tonight, I'd like to walk beside you into that quiet place, not to chase away your sadness or pretend that loss never visits our door, but to wonder together if there is a happiness so steady, so unshakable, it can survive any change. There is a story I once heard about a lantern lit in the darkest night, a small flickering flame that refused to go out, no matter how hard the wind blew. Some say that lantern lives inside each of us, waiting for the moment we remember how to tend it. But before we speak of light, perhaps we should first sit in the darkness and ask ourselves, what if the stillness we resist is the doorway we've been searching for all along? Part 1. The Mirror of the Mind. There's an old story I once heard, though no one ever tells quite how it ends. A young monk came to the Buddha with a troubled heart. He said, "Master, my mind feels like a restless animal. One moment it is peaceful, the next it tears away into fear, anger, longing. How can I ever be happy if my thoughts keep betraying me?" The Buddha listened without interrupting. Outside the small hut where they sat, a late afternoon breeze moved through the bamboo, making a sound like quiet music. For a long while, he only watched the leaves shifting in the light. Then he spoke in a voice so soft it almost disappeared into the air. "The mind is everything," he said. "What you think, you become." The young monk looked down, ashamed, for he had thought perhaps the Buddha would give him a secret, a chant, some way to banish the darkness in his thoughts. But the answer was simpler and much harder. Have you ever noticed that your mind can turn an ordinary day into a burden? A single memory, a regret, a worry, becomes like a stone in your pocket. It weighs you down, though no one else can see it. Sometimes, even happiness feels dangerous because you fear how quickly it will vanish. There's a lesson hidden in this old story, but what it means may not be what you think, because the Buddha did not say control your thoughts or make them pure. He said, what you think, you become. A reflection, not a command. Imagine your mind as a mirror. When clouds drift across it, you may believe the clouds are permanent, that their shadows define you. But all along, beneath every passing shape, there is the original clarity waiting to be seen. One evening, an old woman told me she spent years believing she was too broken to feel real joy again. She lost her husband early, and each morning she woke expecting sadness. It was only when she began to watch her thoughts with a kind of curious distance, to notice, without judgment, the old stories replaying themselves, that she felt something loosen. Have you ever sat quietly, she asked me, and realized that the voice telling you you are not enough isn't really you? What if that was the secret, that you don't have to erase every dark thought or pretend they never come? You only have to see them for what they are, ripples across the water, not the water itself. In time, the young monk came to understand this. He learned to sit with his restless mind as he would with a tired child, offering patience instead of punishment. Slowly, the thoughts softened, and beneath them he discovered something unchanging, a clear space he had never noticed before. Still, one question remained. If the mind shapes our world, what happens when we stop believing every story it tells us? What the Buddha said next was even more unexpected. Part 2. The quiet art of acceptance. There's a moment I think of often, a moment that never makes the history books. An old potter, stooped from decades of turning clay, once sat by the river after his kiln had burned to the ground. He watched the ashes float away on the current. Everything he had shaped and fired now dissolved into silt and memory. A villager passed by and asked, "Aren't you angry that all your work is lost?" The potter only closed his eyes and smiled. "It was never truly mine to keep," he whispered. There's a lesson hidden here, though it sounds too simple to matter. Yet in the hush of night, when regrets crowd the mind, this understanding can feel like a small salvation. Acceptance. We hear the word and imagine giving up, as if acceptance means letting life walk over us. But the Buddha taught that acceptance is the first act of courage. Acceptance is the heart of spiritual practice, he said. Not because it is easy, but because it is honest. Have you ever felt that quiet war within you? The part that insists, "It shouldn't have happened. It isn't fair. I won't allow it." In that struggle, something hardens around the heart, a fortress meant to keep out pain, but that wall's in your own breath. The old potter lost everything he had built, but he did not lose his hands. He did not lose the river, flowing past unchanged, and in that moment of surrender, he found a kind of peace he could not have crafted in any kiln. Sometimes I think of acceptance like sitting at the edge of the sea, watching the tide come in. You cannot order the waves to stop. You cannot plead with them to leave what they have taken. You can only watch and bow and understand that the water moves with or without your permission. Have you ever wondered what would happen if you set down the burden of wishing things were different? Not out of resignation, but out of reverence for reality as it is. In my own life, I have learned that acceptance is not a single decision. It is a practice, returning again and again to meet the moment without armor. To say, "This too belongs." A woman once told me that when she lost her eyesight, she felt as if the world had ended. For months she railed against her fate. But one dawn, sitting in her kitchen, she noticed how the warmth of her teacup reached her palms. She heard the song of a bird she had never noticed before. "It was the first morning I didn't hate my life," she said, "and I realized I hadn't lost everything, only the way I expected to see." What if acceptance is not the end of hope, but the beginning of a softer, truer kind of seeing? And yet, even when we learn to welcome what is, another hunger remains, a quiet ache to find something that doesn't fade. What if all this time we've been searching for happiness in the wrong place? Part 3, Where Happiness Truly Lives. There's a story I heard once about a man who crossed mountains and deserts, believing that somewhere beyond the horizon there waited a jewel so precious it could make him happy forever. Every village he entered, he asked the same question, "Have you seen the jewel that grants unending joy?" And every time the villagers shook their heads or offered him directions to yet another place farther away. Years passed. His beard grew white, his steps slow. At last, he came to a monastery perched above a valley full of golden fields. An old monk greeted him at the gate. "I've come so far," the man said. "Tell me, is the jewel here?" The monk looked at him kindly. "The jewel?" he asked. "Yes, but you've been carrying it all along." The man blinked, confused. The monk reached out and touched the small pouch tied to his belt, a pouch so familiar he'd forgotten it existed. When he opened it, he found a simple stone, smooth and warm from all the years it had rested against his body. He fell to his knees and wept, not because he had been deceived, but because he finally understood. Have you ever spent a lifetime reaching for something, certain that once you held it, you would at last feel complete? Perhaps it was a house filled with laughter, or the perfect partnership, or the approval of someone whose love you never earned. But no matter how many milestones you gathered, some part of you stayed hollow, as though happiness were a door you couldn't quite unlock. The Buddha taught, peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. It is a truth so quiet it's easy to overlook. We search the world for something to soothe our longing, and all the while the jewel waits, unnoticed within the folds of our own heart. I once sat with a man who had built an empire of success. His name on the cover of books, his photograph in magazines, but alone in his kitchen he admitted, I thought if I achieved enough, I wouldn't have to feel the emptiness. But it followed me, no matter where I went. What if the emptiness isn't a flaw, but a signal, a whisper from the deepest part of you, asking to be seen, not filled? Imagine, just for a moment, that everything you were searching for could be found by turning inward. That happiness isn't earned by accomplishment, but remembered in stillness. Have you ever felt that in the quietest moments, watching dusk settle across the trees, or listening to your own breathing, you were brushing against something vast and unbreakable? The jewel, the Buddha said, is your own awareness. It cannot be lost, because it was never apart from you. It only waits for you to notice its light. But even if we begin to glimpse this inner peace, another question stirs beneath the surface. How do we hold on to it when the world outside keeps changing, when life insists on testing our fragile calm? What the old monk revealed next was something the traveler never expected. Part 4. The practice of a steady heart. There's a memory I carry like a small lantern. Years ago I met a woman who had endured more loss than most of us could imagine. Her son had died young. Her marriage dissolved in grief, her health gradually slipping from her grasp. Yet when she spoke, her voice held a gentleness that felt almost impossible. I asked her once, how did you learn to keep your heart open in the middle of so much sorrow? She took a long breath before answering. I learned, she said softly, that pain is part of the river, but so is the current that carries you forward. There's something in her words I have never forgotten. The Buddha told us, chaos is inherent in all compounded things. Strive on with diligence. This isn't the promise that life will stop shifting, or that loss can be banished by any teaching. It is the quiet reassurance that steadiness does not mean never trembling. It means choosing, again and again, to return to the center of your being. Have you ever noticed how quickly the mind clings to fear when life turns uncertain? A single phone call, a letter, a diagnosis, and suddenly your thoughts scatter like startled birds. Yet somewhere beneath the panic, there is another voice, older than any fear, a voice that says, stay here, breathe. This moment is still yours. I think of the old woman who sat alone in her kitchen, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea. Outside, the world went on. Neighbors arguing, sirens in the distance, rain against the windows. But inside that small room, she was practicing something precious, the art of a steady heart. She told me, every morning I close my eyes and remind myself that no matter what happens today, I still have this breath, this moment, and I can choose not to let my fear decide who I am. Have you ever tried that? Sitting quietly, feeling the rise and fall of your chest, the warmth of your own aliveness. In that simple awareness, there is a kind of sanctuary that no storm can breach. Some call it mindfulness, others call it prayer. Whatever name you give it, it is the practice of returning, again and again, to the space beneath thought, where your truest self waits in stillness. A man I once knew compared it to watching a candle flicker in the dark. The flame will sway with every breeze, but as long as you shelter it with your hands, it does not go out. This is the heart of steadiness, not the absence of movement, but the willingness to protect the light within you. And yet, even as we learn to stay rooted in the present, another question tugs at us in the quiet hours. If we are meant to embrace this life fully, how do we endure the hardest seasons without breaking? What the woman discovered next, in the most unexpected way, would change everything she believed about resilience. Part 5. The Resilient Mind. There's an old Zen saying I've always loved: the bamboo bends in the wind, but it does not break. I think of this often, especially when life delivers one of those sudden gusts. An illness, a betrayal, a loss you didn't see coming. It's easy to imagine that if only you were strong enough, you'd never feel the ache of being knocked off balance. But resilience isn't about never swaying. It's about learning how to bend without losing your roots. I once sat with a man who had spent decades climbing the ladder of success. His days were filled with meetings, plans, a constant pressure to stay ahead. But when his company folded, he found himself alone in a small apartment, stripped of the identity he thought defined him. At first, he admitted, he was consumed by bitterness. He replayed every decision, every conversation, wondering where he had failed. But one evening, he lit a candle and sat in the dark, feeling the weight of all he had lost. In that quiet, he told me later, I realized I hadn't failed at life. I'd only failed to see that my worth wasn't tied to what I built. That moment was the beginning of something new. The Buddha said, endurance is one of the most difficult disciplines, but it is to the one who endures that the final victory comes. Have you ever wondered why some hearts emerge from hardship softer, not harder? It's not because they were born unbreakable. It's because, over time, they learn to meet adversity the way the bamboo meets the wind, not by resisting every gust, but by trusting they would not be uprooted. Resilience, I've come to believe, grows from 3 quiet practices. First, the practice of self-compassion. When the man in the dark apartment finally allowed himself to grieve without judgment, a small kindness took root. It was as if he placed a gentle hand on his own shoulder and whispered, even this does not make you unworthy. Second, the practice of perspective. He began to see that the loss of his old identity was not the end, but a clearing, a space where something truer could grow. And third, the practice of gratitude. Each morning, he made himself write down 3 things that still remained: the smell of fresh coffee, the memory of his mother's laughter, the simple fact that he was alive to begin again. Have you ever tried that? Naming the small things that still belong to you, even when the big things have fallen away. It's a way of reminding your heart that the soil of your life is richer than you think. He told me later, it was never about becoming strong enough to never fall. It was about trusting that each time I fell, I could rise again. And perhaps that's the heart of resilience, not the absence of pain, but the faith that your spirit is wide enough to hold both the sorrow and the possibility. But as he began to rebuild, he discovered one more truth he hadn't expected. If resilience is what allows us to stand again, what is it that makes the standing worthwhile? What he found next, in the most ordinary moment, would reveal the final golden thread that weaves it all together. Part 6. The Golden Practice of Gratitude. There's an evening I remember, clear as yesterday. An old woman sat alone at her kitchen table. The last light of day fell across the floor in long, quiet stripes. On the counter, a loaf of bread rested beneath a linen cloth. A cup of tea steamed in her hands. She had outlived so much: her husband, her siblings, most of her dearest friends. Her body had become a map of aches and tenderness. And yet, as she sat in that soft hush, she felt something unexpected, a tiny warmth in her chest, like the first ember of a fire returning. I don't know why, she told me later, her eyes shining, but that evening I just felt thankful to be here at all. There's a lesson in that moment, though it often hides behind our longing for grander joys. The Buddha taught, "Let us rise up and be thankful, for if we didn't learn a lot today, at least we learned a little. And if we didn't learn a little, at least we didn't get sick. And if we did get sick, at least we didn't die." Have you ever noticed how the mind looks past what is still whole in its restless search for what is missing? Gratitude is the practice of bringing your gaze gently back to what remains. That old woman began a ritual, small enough to seem inconsequential. Each night before sleep, she would name 3 things she was grateful for. Some nights it was simply, this breath, this roof, this moment. Other times it was a memory: her daughter's laughter, the smell of summer rain on warm pavement. And slowly, she said, her heart felt less like a house half empty and more like one lit from within. Have you ever tried that? Sitting at the end of a long day, turning your attention, like the beam of a lantern, toward the ordinary blessings you so often overlook. Gratitude is not a denial of pain. It doesn't pretend that loss is easy or that loneliness never comes. It is simply the willingness to say, yes, this too is part of my life. And even here, something good remains. I remember the man who lost his company, the one who had feared he would never feel worthy again. In time, he began to notice small mercies: the neighbor who checked on him, the sun spilling across his kitchen floor, the freedom in no longer having to prove himself. I realized, he told me one day, that gratitude didn't make my problems disappear, but it made them feel less like a prison. Have you ever wondered what would happen if you practiced gratitude, not as a performance, but as a quiet tending of your spirit? What if, in the end, gratitude is the golden thread that stitches together every sorrow, every joy, every ordinary moment into something whole and luminous? And perhaps, in learning to see life this way, we begin to understand the simplest, most radical truth of all: that happiness was never somewhere else, waiting to be earned. It was always here. Still, there is one final question that lingers, soft as a prayer. If gratitude can transform how we see the world, what might it reveal about who we truly are? When you're ready, I invite you to rest in this reflection, or simply breathe in the quiet. May peace walk beside you tonight, and may you remember that even the smallest light can warm the darkest hours. Let's pause here together, in this tender hush between the stories we've shared and the life waiting just beyond your screen. We have traced 7 quiet pathways: the mirror of your thoughts, the art of acceptance, the hidden jewel of inner peace, the practice of steadiness, the slow blooming of resilience, and the golden practice of gratitude. Each of these is not a rule or a command, but an invitation to see your days with gentler eyes and your heart with more kindness. Perhaps tonight you feel something stirring inside you, a recognition, like an old friend you forgot you'd ever known. It is the understanding that happiness was never a destination waiting on the far horizon. It has always been the way you walk, the way you breathe, the way you return to yourself when the world feels too loud. Peace comes from within, the Buddha reminded us. Do not seek it without. If any of these reflections stayed with you, a line, a memory, a question that won't let go, perhaps it is because your spirit was ready to remember. Have you ever wondered what your life might feel like if you trusted, even for a moment, that you are already enough? that this ordinary breath is a gift, and this moment, just as it is, holds a quiet perfection. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't need to rush. You only have to keep returning gently to what is here. If tonight's reflection has found a place in your heart, may it keep you company long after this video ends. Until we meet again, may your days unfold like soft petals in morning light. May peace walk beside you, and may gratitude rise up to meet you in every step.